My name is Sienna. I was born in Northern California, but I never really belonged anywhere. When people ask me where I'm from, I usually say the highway, because that's where most of my memories live between one broken home and the next. My mother died when I was still a kid, and my father disappeared long before that. For a while, my grandmother tried to raise me, but her love came with bruises, rules, and needles. I learned early that safety is a story people tell to make children sleep. I remember being maybe 11, sitting on the back steps of a house that smelled like bleach and cheap perfume, watching the sun sink behind the rooftops. My grandmother's friends were in the living room, laughing too loud, music shaking the walls. I thought the world outside was brighter, bigger, safer. That was the night everything changed. Someone came into my room, and I stopped being a child. I never told anyone. You can't really tell anyone when the people who hurt you are the ones who say they love you. After that, I started running. First from the house, then from school, then from myself. At 13, I was sleeping behind a gas station in Stockton, wrapped in a hoodie that wasn't mine. People called me boy, but every time I heard it, it felt like an insult to my soul. I didn't have the words for what I was then. I only knew that inside me there was a girl screaming to get out. By 14, I found people who didn't ask questions, other kids who lived under bridges, who knew what hunger and silence tasted like. We shared cigarettes, stories, and survival tricks. One of them, a girl named Ray, told me how she made money online. She said it was easy, that I could do it too. I told myself it was just temporary, just until I got on my feet. But the first time I met someone from that site, something inside me shut off. I learned to smile when I was scared. I learned that my body could be traded for food and a bed. And once you learn that, it's almost impossible to unlearn. I was 15 when I started calling myself Sienna. It wasn't a stage name, it was my real name, the one I chose. Every letter felt like a step toward becoming real. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who had survived too much for her age. My voice softened, my clothes changed, my eyes began to look like my mother's. But with every inch of truth I gained, the world punished me for it. People on the street would shout names, sometimes throw things. I kept my head high, pretending not to care, but every word stuck to me like glue. By 16, I was addicted. First it was weed, then crystal meth. Meth doesn't judge you. It just keeps you awake long enough to forget why you don't want to sleep. I told myself it helped me stay alert, but really it just numbed me. I started losing weight, teeth, days. I would wake up in places I didn't remember going to, next to people I didn't know. My phone was always dying, my body always tired, my soul always empty, but I smiled, because that's what you do when you want people to think you're okay. Some nights, when the city lights flickered on, I'd stand under them like they were stage lights. In another life, I could have been a performer, a singer maybe. Instead, I danced for strangers in motel rooms, pretending each one saw me, not just the body I carried. I became an actress without a script, a survivor without applause. I used to tell myself I didn't need love. Love was for people who had homes to return to. But deep down, I was starving for it. I looked for it in every man who held me, in every hand that paid me, in every whisper that said I was beautiful. But those moments disappeared as quickly as the money. The morning always came, and with it, the same question. What am I doing with my life? When you're out here long enough, time stops meaning anything. Days blur together. You measure life in cigarettes, hotel keys, and scars. Sometimes, when I catch my reflection in a car window, I barely recognize myself. There's this strange mix of pride and shame. Pride because I made it another day, shame because I'm still here. I'm only 18 now, but I feel 40. Every wrinkle on my heart has a story. Some nights I pray, not for forgiveness, but for strength to keep walking. To keep believing that maybe, just maybe, I can still become something more than what the streets made me. I never planned to live like this. Nobody does. You just take one wrong turn, then another, and before you know it, the night becomes your address. After I turned 18, Los Angeles didn't feel like a dream, it felt like a test I hadn't studied for. The city is cruel that way. It gives you neon lights and then hides all the exits. I slept where I could. Bus stations, motels that smelled like bleach, a friend's floor. I kept everything I owned in one small backpack and still felt like it was too heavy. Meth was the only thing that made me feel awake. It made me forget hunger, fear, and time. I told myself it kept me safe, but really, it just erased me. When you're high, you stop feeling lonely, but you also stop feeling alive. I could stay up for 3 days straight, watching the sky change color like it was proof I still existed. Sometimes I'd walk down Figueroa at dawn, passing women who looked just like me, different faces, same ghosts behind the eyes. We'd nod to each other like soldiers in a war nobody talks about. There's an unspoken rule out here. You don't ask, you don't judge, you just survive. People think prostitution is about money. It's not. It's about staying warm, staying seen. Some men treat you like you're invisible. Others look at you too long. Both kinds hurt. You learn to read danger from the way someone holds their cigarette, from how long they pause before unlocking the door. Every second is instinct. You smile when you have to. You disappear when you must. Then one morning, everything slowed down. I was standing in line at a coffee cart, shaking from no sleep, when the guy behind the counter said, "You look like you need something warm." His name was Ari. He had kind eyes, the kind that make you forget what you were afraid of. He didn't ask questions. He just poured coffee and asked my name. I said Sienna, and waited for the smirk, the curiosity, the judgment. But he just nodded and said, "That's a beautiful color." It sounds small, but nobody had called anything about me beautiful in a long time. I started coming back. He'd give me coffee even when I had no cash, sometimes a muffin by accident. He'd talk about music, how he played drums at a bar on weekends. I told him I liked to sing, even though I hadn't sung in years. He said, "You should. Your voice probably remembers more than you do." That line stayed with me. For the first time, I felt seen without being sold. But you can't outrun the streets. Every time I tried to stay clean, life would test me. The craving would whisper, or a night would go bad, or the fear would crawl back. I tried detoxing alone once, 2 days, shaking in a bathroom, skin on fire, heart racing like I was dying. On the 3rd day, I went to Ari's stand, trembling, sweating. He didn't ask why. He just poured water and said, "You're here. That's enough." Nobody had ever said that to me. For a while, I let myself imagine a different life. A small apartment with curtains. A job where nobody touched me. A night's sleep that didn't feel like surrender. But hope can hurt more than hunger. Every time I thought I was done with the streets, something would pull me back: a bill, a bad night, a promise that turned to smoke. The city doesn't let go easy. Still, Ari kept showing up. Sometimes I'd walk by just to see his face through the window. I wouldn't go in. I'd just stand across the street, pretending to wait for a bus. Seeing him made me feel almost human again. I started humming to myself at night, little fragments of songs I didn't remember learning. Music became a kind of prayer. One night he invited me to see his band play. I stood in the back, hood up, eyes half closed. When he started drumming, something cracked open inside me. It wasn't love, exactly. It was remembering what it felt like to want something good. After the show, he asked what I thought. I said, "You kept time." He smiled like he understood what I meant. I wish I could say that moment saved me. But healing isn't a straight line. It's a circle you keep walking until you learn the steps. A week later, I relapsed. The crash hit hard. My reflection looked like a stranger, a ganis too wide, lips trembling, hope drained out. I didn't go back to Ari's stand for days. When I finally did, he just said, "Still here." Those 2 words felt heavier than any sermon. I started keeping a small notebook, writing pieces of truth I couldn't say out loud. I am not what happened to me. My body is mine again someday. I am still here. On bad nights, I'd read those lines like scripture. People think addicts don't believe in anything. But we do. We believe in one more chance. Sometimes, when the streets got quiet, I'd imagine a version of myself, years from now, clean singing, maybe even laughing. I don't know if she's real, but I like to think she's waiting. There's a night every girl on the street remembers, the one that changes the way. She looks at the dark dot. Mine came on a Tuesday. I was 19. The air was thick with smoke and cheap perfume, the kind that never leaves your skin. I'd been clean for almost 2 weeks, long enough to believe maybe this time would be different. I was staying in a motel off Western Avenue, the kind where the carpet never dries and the lights hum louder than the guests. I'd started working again, not because I wanted to, but because rent doesn't care about recovery. A man came by just after midnight, tall, clean clothes, polite smile. Said his name was Chris. He looked normal, and that's the problem. The dangerous ones never look dangerous until you're too close to run. We drove toward the hills, away from the city noise. My phone was dead. My gut told me to ask him to stop, but I didn't want to lose the money. The further we went, the quieter it got. No cars, no sirens, just the hum of the tires. He said, "You don't talk much," and I smiled, the kind of smile you learn to fake. When he pulled over, the air felt colder. He told me to get in the back seat. Something in his tone changed. No more politeness, just control. I tried to joke, to keep it light, but his hand gripped my wrist so hard I heard my bones shift. I stopped breathing, the next minutes blur. Flashes of breath, struggle, the smell of sweat and metal. My body froze, but my mind screamed. Then, something in me, that old street instinct, kicked in. I said his name, over and over. Chris, please, look at me. He hesitated. Just long enough for me to slam the door open and run barefoot down the hill. I didn't stop running until I saw the first gas station light. I walked inside, shaking, bleeding, trying not to cry. The clerk didn't ask questions. He just gave me a towel and said, "You're safe here." That sentence felt unreal, like something I'd heard in another life. That night I realized survival isn't strength, it's instinct. You don't choose to be strong. You choose to live. I slept in the bathroom of that gas station until morning. When I woke up, my reflection looked like a stranger. Wild hair, cracked lips, eyes wide with something between fear and fury. I washed my face and whispered, "Not tonight." It became my mantra. Every time danger brushed past me after that, I'd whisper, "Not tonight." I went back to Ari's coffee stand the next day. He saw the bruises but didn't ask. He just said, "Do you want me to make it extra sweet today?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. For the first time, I let someone see me without pretending I was fine. He slid the cup toward me and said quietly, "You don't owe anyone a story." But I wanted to tell it anyway, not because he asked, but because I needed to hear myself say it out loud, that I survived, that I ran, that I'm still here. That moment was the first time I realized my story wasn't shame, it was proof. Proof I existed. Proof I had something left worth fighting for. After that night, I started writing again, not about the pain, but about the small things that still made me feel human. The way sunrise painted the sky pink, the sound of Ari's laughter, the smell of rain on concrete. Little reminders that the world wasn't only sharp edges. People think transformation happens in big moments. It doesn't. It happens in tiny choices. When you decide to eat. When you decide to stay. When you decide to breathe. I began to imagine a version of myself that wasn't broken. I started saving little pieces of hope, one day at a time, one coffee at a time, one promise at a time. The city didn't change. The danger didn't vanish. But I did. Just enough to keep going. Sometimes I walk past the hills where that night happened. I stand there for a minute, let the wind hit my face, and I tell the girl who ran barefoot down the road, "You made it," because she did. And she still is. That night, I realized survival isn't strength, it's instinct. You don't choose to be strong. You choose to live. I slept in the bathroom of that gas station until morning. When I woke up, my reflection looked like a stranger. Wild hair, cracked lips, eyes wide with something between fear and fury. I washed my face and whispered, "Not tonight." It became my mantra. Every time danger brushed past me after that, I'd whisper, "Not tonight." I went back to Ari's coffee stand the next day. He saw the bruises but didn't ask. He just said, "Do you want me to make it extra sweet today?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. For the first time, I let someone see me without pretending I was fine. He slid the cup toward me and said quietly, "You don't owe anyone a story." But I wanted to tell it anyway, not because he asked, but because I needed to hear myself say it out loud, that I survived, that I ran, that I'm still here. That moment was the first time I realized my story wasn't shame, it was proof. Proof I existed. Proof I had something left worth fighting for after that night. I started writing again, not about the pain but about the small things that still made me feel human. The way sunrise painted the sky pink, the sound of Ari's laughter, the smell of rain on concrete. Little reminders that the world wasn't only sharp edges. People think transformation happens in big moments. It doesn't. It happens in tiny choices. When you decide to eat. When you decide to stay. When you decide to breathe. I began to imagine a version of myself that wasn't broken. I started saving little pieces of hope, one day at a time, one coffee at a time, one promise at a time. The city didn't change. The danger didn't vanish. But I did. Just enough to keep going. Sometimes I walk past the hills where that night happened. I stand there for a minute, let the wind hit my face, and I tell the girl who ran barefoot down the road, "You made it," because she did. And she still is. My name is Sienna. I used to believe pain was my identity. Now I know it's just a chapter. I'm learning that forgiveness isn't weakness. It's freedom. Every sunrise is proof that second chances exist. Listening to them helped me believe in them. Then came the day I ran into Kendra again, 6 months later. She was clean, wearing a volunteer badge from the same outreach center. When she saw me, she ran up and hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. "I made it," she whispered. I couldn't stop crying. That's when I understood something simple but powerful. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. We heal by holding each other's hands in the dark. Sometimes people still look at me and only see what I was: a prostitute, an addict, a lost cause. But I don't correct them anymore. Their labels don't belong to me. I've outgrown them. Now, when I walk down those same streets, I don't feel invisible. I see faces instead of ghosts. I nod to the girls who stand where I once did, and I whisper the words that once kept me alive: "Not tonight." Ari still runs his coffee cart. I still stop by when I can. He tells me about his band. I tell him about the girls I talk to. And we both laugh about how life somehow brought two broken people to the same corner and made them whole. Sometimes he plays drums while I sing softly under my breath. We don't call it love, because it's something deeper. It's peace. Maybe that's what second chances are. Not about fixing what's broken, but learning to live gently with the cracks. I never imagined I'd live long enough to tell my own story. For years, I was just trying to make it to the next sunrise. Now, I wake up before the light hits the blinds and listen to the quiet. To my own breathing, to proof that I'm still here. People ask me if I regret my past. I used to say yes. I used to wish I could erase it all. The nights, the bruises, the smoke-filled rooms, the fear. But now, I think regret is just another way of saying we haven't forgiven ourselves yet. I'm learning to forgive. I still live in Los Angeles. I rent a tiny studio that smells like coffee and lavender soap. There's a small plant on the windowsill I keep forgetting to water, but it keeps growing anyway. Maybe it understands me. Most mornings, I walk to the outreach center downtown. The same one where I used to volunteer. Now I work there full-time. My job isn't glamorous. I make coffee. I fold donated clothes. I talk to people who are exactly where I once was. Sometimes they don't trust me at first. They look at my clean clothes and think, she doesn't know. But then I tell them my name. And I tell them I do. Last week, a young trans woman came in. Her hands were trembling, her makeup smeared, her eyes full of that same exhaustion I used to wear like armor. She said, "Everyone's already decided who I am." I told her, then surprised them. She laughed through her tears. It's strange how laughter sounds like survival sometimes. I think about Ari a lot. He still runs his coffee cart near the same corner. We don't see each other every day anymore, but when we do, it feels like no time has passed. He always gives me the first cup for free, even when I insist on paying. It's tradition, he says. We talk about little things, the weather, the music he's working on, a stray cat that's adopted his cart as home. Sometimes we just sit in silence, watching people pass by. That silence feels holy. I told him once, "You saved me." He shook his head. "No," he said. "You just needed someone to remind you that you were worth saving." He was right. Nobody saves you. They just hand you a mirror and wait until you're brave enough to look. I started speaking at small recovery groups. The first time I walked up to the microphone, my hands shook so badly I almost dropped my notes. Then I took a deep breath and said, "My name is Sienna, and this is the first time in my life that my voice doesn't scare me. Every time I speak, I see faces change, eyes that soften, shoulders that drop, people realizing they're not alone. That's what healing looks like to me now. One shared breath at a time, sometimes late at night, the city still whispers. The sound of sirens, laughter spilling from bars, the faint hum of traffic. It reminds me of the girl I used to be, the one who ran barefoot through the dark, the one who didn't believe she'd ever see daylight again. I talk to her sometimes. I tell her, "You did it. You made it through every night you thought would kill you." I've kept every notebook I wrote in during those years, pages filled with smudged ink and shaky handwriting. On the very first page of the very first one, I wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That sentence became my anchor. Every relapse, every heartbreak, every time I wanted to disappear, I'd open that notebook and read those words, and somehow, I'd find my way back. Now, when people ask me what I want from life, I say peace. Not money, not fame, just peace. The kind that lets you sleep without nightmares and wake without fear. There's still pain. Healing isn't a finish line, it's a rhythm. Some days I dance with it, some days I let it lead, but I never let it silence me again. I don't hate the city anymore. I see it differently now, not as a monster, but as a mirror. It reflects everything you carry, the beauty and the brokenness. And if you look closely enough, you'll find light hiding in the cracks. Before I go to bed, I write one line in my journal every night. Sometimes it's something simple like, "I'm grateful for today." Sometimes it's "I'm still learning." But most nights, it's just 3 words. "I'm still here." Because that's the truth. After everything, after all the storms and noise and nights that didn't end, I am still here. And that, to me, is enough.